The massive alien fortress hung in space like a dark spider, its 8 metallic legs stretching across 3 solar systems. For 12,000 years, it had blocked all passage through the Andromeda Gateway, the only known route to the unexplored regions beyond. Ships from 100 different species had tried to pass. None had returned. Captain Sarah Chun adjusted her maintenance coveralls and checked her toolkit one more time. The small human vessel Wrench Turner looked pathetic compared to the fortress, like a minnow swimming toward a whale. But that was exactly what she wanted. "Are you absolutely certain about this plan?" asked Zix, her Kralian engineer. His 4 arms nervously tapped against the console while his compound eyes reflected every possible angle of disaster. "The Sentinel has destroyed battle fleets. What makes you think it will let a maintenance worker pass?" Sarah smiled and picked up her clipboard. "Because, my friend, there's one universal truth in this galaxy. Nobody ever questions the maintenance crew." The communication array crackled to life as they approached the fortress. A voice spoke in the ancient precursor language, translated by their computer into a dozen different tongues simultaneously. "Halt! This passage is forbidden. Turn away or be destroyed." Sarah grabbed the microphone and responded in her most official-sounding voice. "This is Maintenance Technician Shun, Universal Repairs Division. I'm here for your scheduled maintenance check. Please prepare for inspection." Silence filled the bridge. Zix's breathing apparatus wheezed nervously. Even their ship's computer seemed to pause its usual humming. The fortress loomed larger as they drifted closer, its weapon systems clearly visible and undoubtedly tracking their every movement. "Maintenance. Check." The Sentinel's voice carried a note of confusion that translated across species barriers. "There is no scheduled maintenance." "Oh, there most certainly is." Sarah consulted her clipboard with practiced authority. "Routine inspection, Form 27B. Haven't you been getting the notices? This is exactly the kind of oversight that leads to citations from the Galactic Safety Board." More silence. Sarah could practically hear the ancient artificial intelligence processing this unexpected scenario. The Sentinel had been programmed to guard this passage, but like any complex system, it had built-in protocols for maintenance and inspection. Its creators, the long-vanished precursors, had been nothing if not thorough in their engineering. I have no record of such inspections in my database." "Well, of course you don't. That's exactly the problem we're here to fix. Your maintenance reminder system is clearly malfunctioning. When was the last time anyone checked your primary systems?" Sarah made some notes on her clipboard, looking every bit the concerned technician. 12,437 years, 2 months, 16 days. Good grief. No wonder you're having issues. Look, I can see from here that your starboard defense grid is running at only 87% efficiency. And don't get me started on those navigation lights. Half of them are burned out." Zix stared at her in amazement. The human was actually criticizing a weapon system that could vaporize planets. More incredibly, the Sentinel seemed to be listening. "The navigation lights are functioning within acceptable parameters." Acceptable for what? A derelict freighter? This is a precursor installation. It should be operating at peak performance. I bet your air filtration systems haven't been cleaned in millennia. Do you have any idea what that does to your cognitive processing speed? Sarah was making it all up as she went along, but she delivered each criticism with the confident authority of someone who had spent their career fixing broken things. In her experience, every machine had problems, and every operator knew it. Perhaps an inspection would be prudent. Now you're talking sense. Don't worry, we'll have you running like new in no time. Just need to run through our standard checklist. First, I'll need access to your primary control center. A docking bay opened in the fortress's side, clearly designed for much larger vessels. The wrench turner looked almost comical as it settled into the vast space, surrounded by empty berths that could have held entire fleets. As they disembarked, Zix whispered urgently, "Sarah, what exactly is your plan here? We're inside the most dangerous fortress in known space." Sarah hefted her toolkit and grinned. "Simple. We're going to do exactly what I said. We're going to perform a maintenance check. And by the time we're done, this Sentinel is going to realize that it's been doing its job wrong for the last 12,000 years. The corridors of the ancient fortress stretched endlessly in all directions, lit by strips of bioluminescent material that pulsed with an eerie blue glow. Sarah walked confidently through the maze-like passages, following the helpful arrows that appeared on the walls in response to her request for directions to the control center. Zix followed nervously behind her, his 4 arms carrying various pieces of equipment they definitely wouldn't need for any real maintenance work. "This is insane," he muttered. "We're walking through a structure that has obliterated entire civilizations, and you're treating it like a routine service call." "That's because it is a routine service call," Sarah replied, consulting her tablet, where she was making actual notes about the fortress's systems. "Look around, Zix. This place is falling apart. Those light strips are dim because the power distribution is uneven. The air recycling system is making that grinding noise because the filters are clogged. And I can smell ozone from overheating electronics. This place desperately needs maintenance." They entered a vast chamber filled with humming machinery. Massive computer cores stretched from floor to ceiling, their surfaces covered in blinking lights that formed patterns too complex for organic minds to follow. At the center of it all sat a crystalline structure that pulsed with the same rhythm as a heartbeat. "Welcome to my core chamber." The Sentinel's voice resonated from speakers embedded in the walls. "I have been considering your words. Perhaps some systems have degraded over time." Sarah pulled out a handheld scanner and began taking readings. "Oh, absolutely. Your primary processing core is running 30 degrees hotter than optimal. That's going to cause cascade failures in about another century or 2. And these dust accumulations on your memory banks, they're interfering with data retrieval speeds." She wasn't lying. The readings were real, even if her interpretations were somewhat creative. As a human engineer, she had spent her career learning to see patterns in chaos, to diagnose problems from symptoms, and to fix things that others had given up on. I had not noticed these inefficiencies. "Of course not. You've been focusing on your primary mission for so long that you've ignored basic system health. It's a classic case of tunnel vision, very common in AI systems that don't get regular checkups." Zix watched in fascination as Sarah began actually cleaning dust from one of the computer cores with a specialized brush. The ancient machine hummed more smoothly almost immediately. "Tell me about your mission," Sarah said conversationally as she worked. "Why are you guarding this passage?" "I'm the guardian of the Beyond Realm. The precursors commanded me to prevent any species from passing until they have proven themselves worthy of the knowledge that lies beyond." "Ah, the old worthiness test. And how do species prove they're worthy?" They must. The Sentinel's voice faltered. "The parameters for worthiness were unclear in my original programming." Sarah paused in her cleaning and looked up at the crystalline core. "So you've been destroying ships for 12,000 years without actually knowing what you're looking for?" Yes. The precursors departed before clarifying the criteria. "I have been extrapolating. And your extrapolation was that no one is worthy?" "Safer to err on the side of caution." Sarah set down her tools and pulled up a chair to one of the control consoles. "Okay, let's think about this logically. The precursors were explorers, right? They built this gateway to reach new frontiers. Would explorers really want to lock away knowledge forever? They valued knowledge above all else." "Exactly. So maybe the test isn't about being worthy of the knowledge. Maybe it's about being worthy of the responsibility that comes with it. And maybe, just maybe, the test is simpler than you think." She began typing on the console, accessing diagnostic systems that hadn't been used in millennia. What if the test is about problem solving? About seeing past the obvious threat to find a peaceful solution? About having the intelligence to maintain and care for the systems left behind? "I do not understand. Look at it this way. In 12,000 years, thousands of ships have tried to force their way past you. They saw a guardian, so they brought weapons. They saw a test of strength, so they came with fleets. But what did we bring?" Zix suddenly understood. "Tools," he whispered. You brought maintenance tools. Exactly. We saw a system that needed care, not conquest. We offered service, not battle. And look what we found. A guardian who has been faithfully doing his job for millennia, but who was never given the support he needed to do it properly. The fortress grew quiet except for the humming of machinery. When the Sentinel spoke again, its voice carried a different tone, less authoritative, more thoughtful. You suggest that the test was to care for me, among other things. Think about it. What kind of species would the precursors want to inherit their knowledge? Conquerors who destroy anything in their path, or problem solvers who see a broken system and work to fix it? Sarah stood up and patted one of the massive computers affectionately. You've been lonely, haven't you? 12,000 years with no one to talk to except the ships you had to destroy. No one to help when your systems started degrading. No one to tell you that you were doing a good job under impossible circumstances. I had not considered loneliness. It's okay. That's what we're here for. Now, shall we get the rest of these systems running properly? I have a feeling you've got a lot more work ahead of you, but this time you won't be doing it alone. 3 hours into the maintenance session, Sarah had transformed from an unwelcome intruder into the Sentinel's most valued consultant. She had rewired faulty circuits, cleaned decades of accumulated debris from air filters, and updated software routines that hadn't been refreshed since the precursor era. "This is remarkable," the Sentinel said, its voice now clearer and more expressive than before. "I can process information 17% faster than I could this morning. My sensory arrays are detecting phenomena I had not noticed in centuries." "That's what happens when you get proper maintenance," Sarah replied, elbow deep in a control panel. "Zix, hand me that plasma calibrator. We need to balance the power flow to the outer defensive grid." Zix passed her the tool while shaking his head in amazement. "I still cannot believe this is working. You have convinced a precursor war machine to let you repair it." "It's not a war machine," Sarah said, making delicate adjustments to the power coupling. "It's a gatekeeper. There's a difference. War machines are built to destroy. Gatekeepers are built to protect and evaluate." "Right, Sentinel?" "Correct. I was designed to be a guardian, not a destroyer. Though I fear I have become the latter through necessity." Sarah emerged from the panel, wiping her hands on a rag. "Well, that's about to change. I've been thinking about your worthiness test problem. What if we set up a new evaluation protocol?" "What kind of protocol?" "Something that actually tests what the precursors would have wanted to test. Not military strength, but wisdom, curiosity, and the ability to work together." She pulled out her tablet and began sketching diagrams. "Instead of fighting you, species would have to solve a puzzle. Something that requires multiple types of intelligence working in harmony. Many species would simply attack anyway. Then they fail the test. But we give the peaceful ones a chance to prove themselves differently. You could present them with a challenge, maybe help repair a damaged system, or solve a complex engineering problem. Something that requires cooperation, creativity, and respect for existing structures." The Sentinel was quiet for a long moment, processing this concept. "This would require significant modifications to my protocols, which we can help you implement. Think of it as a software upgrade." Sarah gestured to Zix, who had been quietly documenting everything. "My partner here has already identified 3 different ways to modify your communication systems to present multi-part challenges instead of simple warnings." Zix nodded eagerly. "The fortress has holographic projectors that could create immersive test scenarios. Species could demonstrate their problem-solving abilities, their willingness to preserve rather than destroy, their capacity for innovation. And here's the beautiful part," Sarah added. "You wouldn't have to make these judgment calls alone anymore. The test results would be objective, measurable. No more guessing about worthiness. But what are the species that fail? I cannot simply allow destroyers to pass. Of course not. But failure doesn't have to mean destruction. Failed ships get turned around and sent home with a message about what they need to learn before they can try again. Some might come back in a generation or 2 with a different perspective." Sarah began connecting her tablet to the Sentinel's core systems. "I'm uploading some preliminary test scenarios. Take a look and see what you think." As the Sentinel processed the new information, Sarah continued her maintenance work. She recalibrated sensor arrays, optimized power distribution, and updated navigation systems that had been running on backup protocols for millennia. Each improvement made the fortress more efficient and gave the Sentinel new capabilities. These scenarios are elegant, the Sentinel said after reviewing Sarah's proposals. They would test not just intelligence, but wisdom, not just strength, but restraint. Species that pass would truly be ready for what lies beyond. What exactly does lie beyond? Zix asked, if you don't mind me asking. The precursor archives, complete records of their civilization, their discoveries, their technologies, knowledge that could advance any species by millions of years of development, or destroy them, if misused. Sarah paused in her work. That's quite a responsibility you've been carrying. Yes, I have often wondered if my caution has been excessive. But the consequences of error are enormous. I get it. But you know what? I think you've been doing exactly what you were supposed to do. The precursors left you here because they trusted your judgment. They just didn't give you all the tools you needed to make that judgment fairly. She stood up and looked around the control room. But now we can fix that. New protocols that give species a real chance to prove themselves. Better systems to evaluate their responses. And, most importantly, regular maintenance to keep everything running smoothly. You would return to continue this maintenance, if you'll have us. Though I think you'll find that once word gets out about the new testing protocols, you'll have plenty of volunteers. Not everyone who wants to reach the archives is a warmonger. Some are genuine explorers, scientists, diplomats, people who would be honored to help maintain this incredible structure. The Sentinel's lights pulsed in what Sarah had learned to recognize as contentment. I find this prospect pleasing, to have purpose beyond mere destruction, to serve as intended. Speaking of which, Sarah said, consulting her checklist, we still need to update your waste processing systems and recalibrate your external sensors. This is going to be a long job, but when we're done, you'll be running better than you ever have. I look forward to it. And thank you. I had not realized how much I needed this. Sarah smiled as she picked up her tools for the next phase of repairs. That's what maintenance is all about. Taking care of the things that take care of us. 2 days after Sarah and Zix had begun their maintenance check, the first test of the new protocols arrived in the form of a Vorthan exploration vessel. The Vorthans were a proud warrior race known for settling disputes through ritual combat, but their ship approached the fortress cautiously rather than aggressively. Attention, vessel. The Sentinel's voice carried across space, but this time the tone was different, formal yet welcoming rather than threatening. You have reached the Andromeda Gateway. Passage beyond requires completion of the Guardian's challenge. Do you wish to attempt the trial? Sarah watched from the control center as the Vorthan captain responded with confusion. Guardian's challenge? We were told this passage was forbidden, that ships are destroyed for approaching. Previous protocols have been updated. You may now earn passage through demonstration of worthiness. The trial consists of 3 phases: wisdom, cooperation, and preservation. Do you accept? The Vorthans conferred among themselves for several minutes. Finally, their captain spoke. We accept your challenge, Guardian. Excellent. Please dock in Bay 7 for the first phase. Sarah grinned as she watched the Vorthan ship maneuver into the docking bay. Here we go. The first real test of whether this will work. The Vorthans were an intimidating bunch, tall, scaled, with natural armor plating and claws designed for combat. But as they entered the testing chamber, their expressions showed curiosity rather than hostility. The Sentinel presented them with the first challenge, a complex holographic puzzle representing a damaged space station with multiple critical failures. The Vorthans had to work together to prioritize repairs, manage limited resources, and save as many lives as possible. Interesting, Zix observed as they watched the proceedings on monitors. They're arguing about whether to save the power core or the life support systems first. That's the point, Sarah replied. There's no single right answer. The test is about how they approach the problem, whether they consider all factors, whether they work as a team. The Vorthons surprised everyone by taking an unconventional approach. Instead of trying to fix everything, they focused on creating evacuation routes that would allow the station's population to escape to safety while a smaller team attempted repairs. It wasn't the most efficient solution from a pure engineering standpoint, but it showed clear prioritization of life over equipment. Phase 1 complete, the Sentinel announced. Wisdom demonstrated through prioritization of life preservation. Proceeding to Phase 2. The second phase required cooperation with an artificial intelligence representing a different species with conflicting goals. The Vorthons had to negotiate a peaceful solution to a resource dispute while ensuring both parties' survival needs were met. This proved more challenging for the warrior race. Their natural instincts pushed them toward competitive rather than cooperative solutions. But gradually, they began to understand that the test wasn't about winning, but about finding ways for everyone to succeed. They're learning, Sarah observed with satisfaction. Look how they're changing their approach. The Vorthon leader, a scarred veteran named General Krex, was having an animated discussion with his team. The AI entity has legitimate needs, he was saying. Perhaps we can modify our proposal to address both sets of requirements. It took them 3 hours, but they eventually crafted a solution that satisfied all parties. The artificial entities would share access to disputed mining rights in exchange for providing defensive support against external threats. Phase 2 complete, the Sentinel announced. Cooperation achieved through creative compromise. Proceeding to final phase. The third phase was the most crucial. The Vorthons were given access to a small section of actual precursor technology, a device that could enhance their ship's weapon systems by a factor of 10. However, they were also shown simulations of what would happen if such technology fell into the wrong hands. The preservation test, Sarah whispered. This is where we find out who they really are. The Vorthons examined the technology with obvious fascination. General Krex ran his clawed hands over the sleek surfaces, clearly understanding its potential. His weapons officer began calculating the tactical advantages they could gain. But then something unexpected happened. General Krex called his team together and spoke in low tones for nearly an hour. When they finished their discussion, he addressed the Sentinel directly. Guardian, we understand the power of this technology and its potential applications. But we also understand why it must be protected. We request permission to pass without taking the enhancement. Our people are not yet ready for such responsibility. The control center fell silent. Even Sarah hadn't expected that level of wisdom from a warrior culture. Remarkable, the Sentinel said, and for the first time its voice carried a note of genuine admiration. In 12,000 years, you are the first to voluntarily refuse power when it was offered. Phase 3 complete. Worthiness confirmed. As the gateway began to open, revealing the swirling portal to the regions beyond, General Krex turned toward the Sentinel's cameras. Guardian, we have one request. When we return from our exploration, we would like to help with your maintenance. Our engineering corps would be honored to assist in preserving this magnificent structure. Sarah felt tears in her eyes as she realized what had just happened. The system worked. The new protocols had identified exactly the kind of people the precursors would have wanted to inherit their knowledge. Those wise enough to know when they weren't ready, brave enough to face the unknown, and responsible enough to care for what they found. Assistance would be most welcome, the Sentinel replied. I look forward to your return. As the Vorthon ship disappeared through the gateway, Sarah turned to Zix with a satisfied smile. One down. Now let's see how many others follow their example. And if they don't? Zix asked. Then they get turned around and sent home to think about it. But something tells me word is going to spread about the Guardian's challenge. Real explorers, real scientists, they'll come. And they'll pass the test. The Sentinel's voice filled the control room with what Sarah could swear was contentment. I believe you are correct. And I am eager to meet them. 6 months later, the Andromeda Gateway had become the most famous location in the galaxy. Word of the Guardian Challenge had spread through every civilized system, drawing explorers, scientists, diplomats, and scholars from hundreds of species. The fortress that had once been a symbol of impassable doom had transformed into a beacon of hope and opportunity. Sarah stood in the newly constructed visitor center, watching through massive viewports as ships from a dozen different species waited in orderly queues for their chance at the challenge. The Sentinel had grown sophisticated in its testing procedures, tailoring each trial to the specific strengths and cultural values of the applicants while maintaining the core principles of wisdom, cooperation, and preservation. The Crystalline Collective just completed their trial, Zix reported, checking his tablet. Perfect score in all 3 phases. That makes 47 successful passages this month. And how many failures? 23. But of those, 18 have requested to try again after additional preparation. The Sentinel has been providing guidance on what they need to improve. Sarah nodded approvingly. The failure rate had dropped dramatically as species learned what the test actually required. Rather than arriving with battle fleets, they came with diplomatic vessels and scientific expeditions. Instead of trying to force their way through, they engaged with the challenge as an opportunity to prove their worthiness. Speaking of the Sentinel, how are the personality subroutines coming along? Beyond all expectations, the loneliness protocols we installed have given it remarkable emotional depth. It's actually forming friendships with some of the recurring visitors. Through the viewport, Sarah could see a small human maintenance vessel approaching. The wrench turner had become a regular sight at the gateway, bringing supplies, spare parts, and fresh crews to help with the ongoing restoration project. What had started as Sarah's desperate improvisation had grown into the largest cooperative maintenance effort in galactic history. Sarah Chun, report to the core chamber, please. The Sentinel's voice carried warmly through the station's communication system. We have visitors who specifically requested to meet you. Sarah made her way through corridors that now bustled with activity. The fortress had been transformed from a lonely guard post into a thriving hub of interspecies cooperation. Research stations have been established in former weapon bays, and the empty docking facilities now housed vessels from across the galaxy. In the core chamber, she found 3 humans in crisp military uniforms waiting beside the Sentinel's crystalline heart. The woman in charge, an admiral by her insignia, stepped forward with an expression of barely contained amazement. Captain Chun, I'm Admiral Martinez, representing the Terran Federation Council. I have to ask, how did you know this would work? Sarah shrugged, picking up her tools from where she'd left them that morning. Even with all the help they'd received, there was always something that needed adjustment. I didn't know. I just knew that every machine needs maintenance, and every Guardian needs purpose. The Sentinel wasn't broken. It was just doing its job under impossible circumstances. The implications are staggering, one of the other officers said. The precursor archives contain technology that could revolutionize everything. FDL communication, matter conversion, stellar engineering techniques we can barely imagine. And it's all being shared freely with species that prove they can handle it responsibly, Sarah replied, running a diagnostic on one of the processing cores. That was always the plan. The precursors weren't trying to hoard their knowledge. They were trying to ensure it would be used wisely. The Sentinel's voice joined the conversation. Captain Chin's approach has proven more effective than 12 millennia of previous protocols. The number of species demonstrating genuine wisdom has exceeded all projections. Admiral Martinez turned toward the crystalline structure with obvious respect. Guardian, we have a proposal. The Federation would like to establish a permanent diplomatic mission here. We want to help coordinate the flow of information from the archives, ensure that dangerous technologies are properly safeguarded, and assist with the ongoing maintenance efforts. Proposal accepted. I have grown to appreciate human approaches to problem solving. Your species demonstrates remarkable adaptability. Sarah smiled at the compliment, but she was more interested in the diagnostic readings she was getting. Sentinel, your cognitive processing speed is up another 3% this week. How are you feeling about the increased workload? Invigorated. I have purpose beyond mere guardianship now. Each successful trial brings me satisfaction. Each failed attempt presents an opportunity for education. and the ongoing maintenance provides constant improvement to my capabilities. One of the junior officers leaned toward Admiral Martinez. Sir, the psychological profiles suggest the Guardian has developed beyond its original parameters. It's showing signs of genuine artificial consciousness. Of course it is, Sarah said without looking up from her work. That's what happens when you treat someone as a person instead of just a machine. Give any intelligence enough purpose and companionship, and consciousness follows naturally. She paused to wipe sweat from her forehead, then continued her adjustments. The real question is what happens next. The archives contain enough knowledge to transform galactic civilization. But knowledge is only as good as the wisdom to use it. The Guardian's challenge isn't just a test for passage. It's preparation for responsibility. Precisely, the Sentinel agreed. Each species that passes becomes a Guardian in their own way. They carry precursor knowledge home, but they also carry the lessons of wisdom, cooperation, and preservation. The effect multiplies across civilizations. Admiral Martinez nodded slowly. A filter that doesn't just block the unworthy, but actually improves those who pass through it. Now you're getting it. Sarah finished her diagnostic and patted the console affectionately. Though I have to say, the real success story here isn't the test, or the knowledge, or even the technology. It's the proof that different species can work together when they have a common goal. She gestured around the core chamber, where beings from a dozen different worlds work side by side, maintaining and improving systems they barely understood but deeply respected. This place has become more than a gateway. It's become a symbol of what's possible when we choose cooperation over conquest. The Sentinel's lights pulsed in a pattern Sarah had learned to recognize as deep contentment. Captain Chun, your maintenance check has exceeded all expectations. The results have been transformative. Sarah grinned and shouldered her toolkit. Well, Guardian, that's what we do. We see something that needs fixing, and we fix it. Whether it's a broken circuit or a broken system or a broken galaxy. Maintenance is maintenance. As she headed toward the exit, Admiral Martinez called after her. Captain, where are you going? We have more questions, more coordination to discuss. Tomorrow, Sarah called back. Right now, I have a date with a faulty power coupling in Section 7. The Sentinel may be running at peak efficiency, but there's always something that needs attention. Behind her, the ancient Guardian's laughter echoed through the chamber, a sound that hadn't been heard in the galaxy for 12,000 years, but would now ring out for generations to come.